Is that you, Kash Patel, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that meme.
Is that you reposting it, was my question.
And that's me at the top.
You said FBI agents were responsible for the violence on January 6th, and I quote you here, beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that what you said?
That's completely incorrect.
So Sheldon Whitehouse just walked into Kash Patel's first Senate oversight hearing and did the math live on camera. Patel published a book called Government Gangsters with 60 names in the back of it, a list of people he labeled members of the executive branch deep state, corrupt actors of the first order. People like Robert Mueller, James Comey, John Brennan, former Trump officials, career prosecutors, intelligence professionals. 60 names. Patel has been director of the FBI for 7 months, and Whitehouse looked across the table and told him calmly that adverse actions of various kinds have already been taken against about 20 of those 60 people. Then he did the arithmetic out loud. 7 months, 20 people. At that rate, he has got 14 months until he has gone through the whole list. And Patel's response was to say he does not have an enemies list. Whitehouse told him there was a list. He published it himself. And then Patel could not explain any of it. I will give you my full take at the end. Let's watch this.
Thanks, Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Patel. I remember January 6th. Colleagues running through our halls to flee the mob. Colleagues shouting that rioters should be shot. Us returning to our constitutional business through hallways cleared for us by automatic weapons carrying SWAT teams. None of you, none of us, said those violent rioters should be pardoned. A Republican colleague said such pardons would be hard to believe, even absurd. Your former colleague J.D. Vance said the violent rioters should not be pardoned. Even Jim Jordan said pardons would, and I quote, focus on all the people who didn't commit any violence. Well, Trump pardoned all of them. And there's a lesson in that. Every time you think Trump would never go that far, rethink that. We all seem to agree that violence against police is unacceptable, yet more than 600 people who physically attacked Capitol Police officers were just put back on the street, part of a 1,500-person personal Trump army, now out there with people who have proven themselves willing to do violence on Trump's call. In only 10 days, some are already back committing crimes. We've also tried as a committee, together, to address the dangers of illicit drug sales over the internet, and I assume we're all against murder for hire. But Trump also just pardoned a dark web operator sentenced to life in prison for trafficking illegal drugs online and accused of soliciting murders for hire. Those pardons, as Mr. Patel has said, are a mistake, but they are also a signal that we are entering a strange and dangerous time. That is the context for today's hearing. Warnings that the FBI could become Trump's enforcer, use the powers of law enforcement to stifle speech and dissent, punish political rivals of either party, and hand out free passes, get out of jail free cards to violent supporters are warnings we should heed. Here are some warnings of this nominee's Trump administration colleagues. Former Attorney General Bill Barr said, this nominee has virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency, end quote, and we would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. That's for the deputy position. Former CIA Director Gina Haspel was reported threatening to resign rather than have this nominee serve under her. John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, said, I didn't think he was qualified. I was forced to hire him. Trump's deputy national security advisor, the nominee's former supervisor, said, his ideas are ludicrous. He's absolutely unqualified for this job. He's untrustworthy. And it's an absolute disgrace to even consider an individual of this nature. That's from Republican appointees who worked with him. And here's what this nominee himself has said about using his office to prosecute journalists. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. We're gonna come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that a correct quotation, Mr. Patel?
Senator, that's a partial quotation,
But it's correct.
in part.
Regarding his publication of his enemies list, Mr. Patel proclaimed, "The manhunt starts tomorrow," and reposted a video depicting him taking a chainsaw to his political enemies. Is that you, Kash Patel, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that meme.
Is that you reposting it, was my question.
And that's me at the top.
You said FBI agents were responsible for the violence on January 6th, and I quote you here, beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that what you said?
That's completely incorrect, and I appreciate the opportunity to address that.
I'll give you an opportunity in writing, but this is my time now.
Have at it.
An Inspector Attorney General investigation found that that was false. And you said we should impeach judges who rule against Donald Trump, who are, in your words, political terrorists. When this nominee tries to explain all this away, keep one thing in mind. He's testified under oath before a Colorado judge who presided over a Trump case in which he was a witness. And the judge found, and I'm quoting here, he was not a credible witness. His testimony is not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. That's from a judge. This is a dangerous time, and I ask all my colleagues to consider whether these plain comments by this person and by his own Trump administration colleagues should be given a blind eye, just overlooked, or whether, like the warnings of pardoning violent January 6 offenders, they're warnings to be heeded. There is an unfathomable difference between a seeming facade being constructed around this nominee here today and what he has actually done and said in real life when left to his own devices. Conduct shows character. And if you look at history, you see the danger of security chiefs in authoritarian regimes becoming the tools of political power. The characteristics that they often show are that they are vengeful, that they are grandiose, that they are intemperate, that they are partisan and blindly loyal, and that they are servile and won't say no. I'm afraid that the history of this nominee's conduct raises those warnings.
So if you just watched that and felt like you were watching someone get held accountable to their own published writing in a way they clearly did not prepare for, that is exactly what happened. Let me break down what Whitehouse exposed here and why the math alone is so damning. Start with what the list actually is. In the appendix of Government Gangsters, Patel named 60 people he called members of the executive branch deep state. These were not anonymous enemies or vague categories. These were named individuals. Robert Mueller, described in the book as an utter swamp creature. James Comey, John Brennan, Christopher Wray. Dozens of career officials, prosecutors, and intelligence professionals who Patel publicly identified by name as targets of what he described as a battle for American democracy. He published this list before he had any power. Now he has power. And Whitehouse is sitting across from him with the book and a scorecard. 20 out of 60 in 7 months. That is the number Whitehouse establishes as documented fact. Not allegations, not theories, documented adverse actions of various kinds against roughly a third of the people on that list in less than a year. James Comey has been indicted. John Brennan has had his security clearance revoked and faces ongoing scrutiny. Multiple career FBI officials named in the appendix have been fired or forced out. The pattern White House is describing is not a coincidence. It is a to-do list being executed in sequence. And Patel's response is the one that tells you everything. He says the presupposition is entirely inaccurate. He does not have an enemies list. Any adverse actions taken at the FBI are based on merit and qualifications. White House does not blink. He says there was a list. Patel published it himself. About 20 people on it have had adverse actions. Those are clear facts. And then he moves on to the grand jury question. The Jeanine Pirro background check piece that comes up later in the hearing is the kind of detail that gets buried but matters. Pirro was nominated as U.S. Attorney for D.C. Fox News executives during her time at the network had documented in internal communications that they considered her a reckless maniac who makes insane comments, whose penchant for random conspiracy theories on weird internet sites they could not trust. Those are Fox News executives describing their own anchor in internal documents that later became public through civil litigation. White House asks Patel directly whether that information turned up in Pirro's FBI background investigation. Patel says he does not discuss background investigations publicly. White House asks whether he even knows if it was found. Patel deflects again, which means either the FBI's own background check missed documented evidence from her own employer that she was unfit for the role, or they found it and confirmed her anyway. Neither answer is good. And then there is what White House said at Patel's confirmation hearing that has now been proven right. He stood up and said, "Kash Patel, mark my words, will cause evil in this building behind us. Republicans who vote for him will rue that day." He was called alarmist. He was told he was being dramatic. And now, 7 months later, 20 of the 60 people on the published enemies list have had adverse actions taken against them. The FBI has been gutted of career officials, counterintelligence agents have been fired, and the director of the FBI cannot explain why he fired 2 decorated combat veterans from the agency, even when told in writing the terminations were unlawful. Here is my take. The thing about the enemies list that makes Patel's denial so hollow is that the list exists. He wrote it. He published it. It has 60 names in the back of a book he sold to the public. Calling it something other than an enemies list does not change what it is. And the fact that roughly 20 of those 60 people have faced adverse actions from the FBI he now runs in the 7 months he has been director is not a coincidence. It is a pattern that White House identified, documented, and put on the congressional record. Patel told him the presupposition was inaccurate. White House told him the facts were the facts. And then Patel had nothing left to say. I really appreciate you watching. Make sure to check out this one. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit like and subscribe. Drop a comment and tell me what you think.